And welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. After a vacation and a 2-week hiatus, we're back with the program. And I wanted to share some things that I observed during my break. So strap in and we will get into some of the ways that we might improve our conversations.
Welcome to the Eye of Power podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dardick. But this podcast is not about me. It's about you and your power. It's time to claim yours.
One of the things we obviously talk about here at the Eye of Power is how we improve our personal power, our agency, our ability to make things happen. And one of the primary determinants of that is the level to which we connect with other people. So my shoulder's blocking it right now, but this is the people quadrant right here. And it's a place where we work on our attitude as it relates to other people. And it's an important aspect of life because we are social creatures, number one. Almost all of the meaning that we get is in terms of our relationships and the impact we make on other people. And of course, one of the litmus tests that I use is, what are people thinking on their deathbed? And they're generally not thinking about all the things they accomplished, the amount of money they made, how big their house was, how impressive was their collection of this or that. No, generally what they're thinking about is, I wish I'd spend more time with this, or wow, was this person lovely to me? And 5 more minutes with that person, I would give everything I have for that. In other words, the most valuable currency we have is really the currency of our connections with other people. The question is, how do we, over time, nurture those connections? And how do we, over time, probably mostly without meaning to, degrade those relationships? And of course, that's a big topic. We'll dive a little bit into it today. But the basic idea here is, what can you do for other people in conversations? Now, I'm going to look at this issue through my experience of being on a cruise. And this cruise, I happened to go by myself. I knew some other people on the ship prior, but I traveled by myself and was in charge of my own schedule every day, all day, and was able to do what I wanted at all times. By the end of the cruise, I remember sort of the night, the last night of the cruise. It was supposed to be a 7-day. It ended up being 5 days because the hurricane prevented the ship from getting to Boston on time. So we went Sunday instead of Friday. But 5 days of an going all day kind of thing seems like plenty. So it was a wonderful trip. But I was about to say the last night, we're in the lounge where everybody's sort of gathering to say goodbye and, wish everyone well and all that kind of thing. I just found myself sort of sitting, kind of went up to the bar, talked to some people I knew. That person bought me a drink. I'd been friends with their whole group. There's a group of 10 people or 10 couples, excuse me. So there's 20 of them, met most of them. And then there were bands that I got to know, spent time with them. It just felt like I kind of knew almost everybody in the room, not everybody, but quite a few. And that's not a usual thing. Most people do not stand there and have people come up and buy them drinks or know most of the people if they hadn't come with them, that sort of thing. And it's different when you're by yourself, truthfully. I'm talking to other people because I'm not with people that I came with. So that's definitely a factor. But even the people that travel by themselves, of which there are plenty, don't have that kind of experience typically. So I'm not trying to brag or say I'm a fantastic person everybody gets to know. Most people like me and I like them. But I have developed skills over time because it's important to me. Relationships are important to me, and I try to have great conversations because I really enjoy them. And over the years, that has made me fairly good at it. And so what's the secret? What do I do that I don't notice other people doing? So I'll share a little bit about that. So First thing, number one thing, I'd say of the reason why I can have friendships that sort of blossom out of thin air. Number one, I'd say, is the environment. So you go on a cruise like this. This is a music cruise. Now, I might have talked, if you've watched previous shows, I might have talked about the Cruise to the Edge, which I've been on 3 times. This one is the same company, but it's called On the Blue. It's hosted by Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues, who is a headliner. Alan Parsons Project was a headliner, and Al Stewart and the Empty Pockets were a headliner. And then they had all kinds of other bands, some of which, if you know classic rock, you'd be familiar with bands like Starship, and a guy used to sing with Boston, and um, Young Dubliners were really good, and the Weaklings, Pat Travers' band was one of the best bands on the boat, and lots of them, 30 or so, something like that. And so there's shows all day. Anyway, you go in these concerts and it's an all day thing, and you're talking to people beforehand and afterwards, and you have something to say about. So you have something to talk about. So the first thing I'd like you to take away from this podcast on, how can you improve your conversations is if you're in situations where there's a shared experience, that's a leg up because you have something that's natural and easy and obvious to talk about. And so that's number one. Also, on a vacation, on a cruise, you're sort of stuck in an environment. There might be an agenda. People might want to get to a show or have dinner plans or go on an excursion or something like that. But generally speaking, people are relaxed. They're not in a hurry. If you start a conversation, they're happy to have the conversation and not necessarily thinking about the next thing they need to do. So that means that people tend to be more present. And so that's another important thing. So it's situation, and then that leads into number two would be being present. And it takes both people to be present to have what we call a great conversation. So what does that mean? That means you're focused on the person, you're focused on the topic, you're not distracted by other things, you're not looking at your watch worrying about the next thing or thinking about what you have to do tomorrow. You're literally just 100% in the moment. And when that happens, the conversation tends to level up. So that's the present piece. Number three, so that's kind of applies to everybody, no matter what, in a way. There might be some people that are just naturally distracted, naturally don't want to talk to people. There's some blocks there, of course. But most people, I'm going to say over 80% of the people are in a situation like that or in that situation, and they're present. In the world of work or in our daily lives, when we're running our routines, the percentages fall quite a bit. But these next few things will apply no matter what. And that is the third thing I'd say, and it might be the number one thing, which is being actually curious about the other person, wanting to actually know. So in a case where you're on vacation, people are coming from all over the world. This is, again, very easy, very low-hanging fruit because you can always ask people, where are you from? What's your deal? What's your family like? You're basically just sort of asking, I'm a stranger and I'm interested in all the things that you might put on a brochure about you. And when you do that, people generally respond pretty well because in their workaday life, in their normal life, you don't get a lot of opportunities for that, where it's relaxed, where somebody's actually interested, where you have extended time to go into detail. And when you do that, it feels really good. And the reason that feels really good is because one of the major needs we all have is to be seen. And when I say seen, I mean known for who we actually are. And sometimes we aren't seen for who we actually are because of the environments we're in, because the people are around. Sometimes we're not seen for who we actually are because we work hard not to show it. We have defense mechanisms that put up sort of barriers that keep us safe. That's the reason the barrier's there. But when the situation isn't dangerous, or when you're meeting somebody new, or you're looking to connect with people, if you forget those barriers are there and your behavior patterns just put them up, that makes it more difficult. That's number one thing, is to make sure that you're not hiding yourself. And some people do. When I had an experience on this boat, I didn't immediately connect with everybody. Not everybody's going to connect with where I'm coming from, number one. And number two, some people just have the barriers up, and you might try to take it down or get past it, but maybe they don't want to for whatever reason, doesn't matter. So it's not like I can just go up to everybody and I see you sort of thing, although again, I do that more than most people do. So being curious about the other person, really wanting to know. So if you really want to know, that makes it easy because you're wondering and you're asking the questions you're wondering about, and it's natural and it flows and people respond and you gain a momentum in a conversation. And sometimes this momentum can carry you far in a short period of time. There were two examples on the ship this time. I've had it before in other cruises in these circumstances where somebody might say to me, "Wow, I'm really glad you met me. You really inspired me." I'm like, "How'd I inspire you?" I wasn't trying to. It's just the conversation went to a real place that moved them in reality to think of something different than they otherwise would. And that was a very important, valuable thing to them, so much so that they felt like they had to thank me and acknowledge me and give me that sort of gratitude that of course feels good to me too. I like to help the humans. That's what I do for a living. So when I can help somebody see something or feel something that they otherwise wouldn't, that they feel uplifts them, empowers them, moves them forward, makes them do something they might not have otherwise done, I feel like I'm dead on point of my life's mission. So that feels really good to me too. And for that to happen in quick, little snippets. One guy I couldn't have been talking to for more than 5 or 10 minutes felt that way. Another person was probably like 45 minutes where we had a really good conversation, and both of them had that experience. And I'd say in both cases, it was because I was willing to share what was real and true for me on an emotional, vulnerable level. That gives them permission to do the same. So I'm going to say that's number four, being willing to share what's real and true for you. And um, so curious about them's number three, being fully open, open kimono sort of attitude towards the conversation um, would be number four. Number five, it comes from, I'd say, the four agreements of Don Miguel Ruiz, who we've talked about a number of times because that's one of the more important influences that I've had, which is be impeccable with your word, is one of the agreements. And that has power because all of the power that you have in the world is comes from your tether to what's real in the world. So this is something we've talked a little bit about before, but we don't actually perceive the world as it is. What we do is we have narratives, and our narratives serve our perceived purposes. And our narrative is what we think the world is. And by definition, since we're beings of limited perceptive power, it is not the world. It's just our story about the world. And our story about the world shapes our attitude. Now, we're talking about attitude towards others. It shapes our attitude towards ourselves. So that story is where all of our ability to change our impact about ourselves and others, that's where it lies. So when I say real and true, what we're saying there is those observations that are part of our narratives that are tend to be universal, that people, if they look, they see it. And so we'll call that reality. Another friend of reality comes from the pain quadrant up here, which is how do we know we're off track and not jiving with the real world? Well, we have a feedback loop. We call it pain because it doesn't feel good, but it's basically a system that alerts us that energy is blocked, something's wrong, pay attention. So it's telling us, and that pay attention. What is that that's knocking on our door? You can use whatever words you want, but one word that seems powerful to me is reality. It's just reality knocking on the door. So when I say be real, you're responding to those things that unblock the pain or that expand your power because they're rooted in universally observable phenomenon that we can all incorporate into our narratives. So that's what I mean, but when I say reality, not the totality of reality. We don't have a view of that in our earthly forms. We don't, we only see our narratives. So when I say be real, what I really mean there is be open with your narrative. So you're always looking, and this might be its own separate thing. So let's say be real was number five. Number six, we'll say, is always be expanding your model of the world. And how do you do that? Well, again, your story is your story. Nobody's seen it, only you. And that's your value. And when somebody else is interested in that, it feels good. And that helps us connection. And that's why the emotion is there to make us connect better. That's all great. And then the basic idea there then is we want to expand our and make our narrative more powerful by what? By incorporating what others see that we don't. Now, this is sort of an obvious thing if you think about it. You want to learn, you have a teacher. You learn from everybody around you. When we're born, everything, our whole world is through our mom, or maybe our mom and dad, if we have siblings, the people that are around us. Everything we learn is through what we mimic and see and do from other people. Then we end up going to school and we get influences both good and bad from that experience. But as we go through life, we are affording ourselves the observations that other people have had, whether they're shared in conversation or if they're in the written word. So reading is a phenomenal way to expand our vision of reality because we get to talk to people that are no longer around or that we wouldn't have access to. And with talk, I mean, hear what they have to say. And then if you have a question, you can have a conversation, even if it's with an author, because you can find out what they would have thought about this or that. And we're actually entering an age on this particular case where I think things are going to even blow up more because you can have an AI partner that takes more and more of the world's points of views into place and have conversations that you'd never otherwise have. And this is only going to get more and more detailed, more and more powerful. And of course, there's risk there because it'll be powerful, and that power can be used to expand and to uplift and to make the world better and make us better people. And it could be used to manipulate and control and squash and make us fearful and squash our individual power. So we really do have to pay attention to these things that we're talking about here on the Eye of Power podcast because it's kind of up to you as to whether these things are going to help you or control you. So that's a very important part. Anyway, I'm going to say those are the major things that help you in conversation, that connect to people. And what I see when people don't have great conversations or they don't feel that connected, it's because one or more of those things are limiting them. And one of the big things is, and I'll say it's sort of a trend and a generational trend, although it's not true for individuals because I can, I had connections with people that were in their 20s, young in bands, and we connect like we're best friends, or people that are retired and, just cruising and living out the rest of their days in a most relaxing and fun manner they can. And they still have the same universals. They want to be seen. They want to be appreciated. They want to connect with other people. It's a universal. So the trend that I'm pointing to there, of course, is one of self-absorption. So we have a world where we have constant stimulation. People have their phones in their hands all the time. They're looking at screens. They're getting a stream of things that are, let's say, stimulating dopamine, and it's taking them away from the presence of the world into the whatever the online or whatever the distraction from the wake-a-day world is. They're in that, and I'm gonna, as it is right now anyway, I'm gonna say that's a shadow world. That's not helping. So you probably know what I'm talking about. You go out to a restaurant, you see a group of people, it might even be a family, and the entire family is out to dinner, and everybody's looking at their phone for a good chunk of the meal. And it's like, okay, I'm glad we enjoyed that dinner together. We could have just gotten DoorDash and saved us, or cooked and stayed at home if we're going to just go out and eat in the same place and not really talk, right? But that's the habit, and it's not really something that people decide. It's a conditioning mainly based on dopamine hits. So we get conditioned to behave in these ways, and they are limiting. They feel good, but they're limiting. It's something that I think we could all do better at making sure that we don't fall into that trap and that we value the actual human beings that we're lucky enough to be around. And I say lucky enough because everybody has their story. There might be somebody who annoys the hell out of you, or that you think has done something bad, or thinks that something that you think is foolish or even bad. That doesn't mean they're not a teacher for you. They see things you don't. Every single person. It could be a 3-year-old. It could be a 7-year-old. It could be, a 95-year-old who has a tough time putting thoughts together. It doesn't really matter. It's a universal thing. They see things you don't. And when you have that, when you first of all acknowledge that, second of all, want to expand your narrative by learning what that is, it naturally leads to deeper, more meaningful connection. And I'll say, if you're going on a vacation or going through your day at work or wherever it might be, as far afield as experiences can be, they're always better when you feel seen and when you let other people feel seen too. That always elevates. It always is satisfying. It's always something that makes you feel more alive, more you. And that's really what we're about in the Eye of Power, is trying to find ways that we can become the most fully expressed version of ourselves. And one of the clearest paths is to help others do the same by just being interested in them and giving them the gift of your attention and your compassion, your interest and your wanting. It's really love. I mean, that actually is the word, is love. What is love? Love is caring about what happens to the other person. You're rooting for them. You want the best for them. You want them to be the most full expressed version of themselves. You don't really want to see them suffer. You don't want to see them be disappointed and have problems. You'd like to be on their side helping. That's essentially what I'd say love is. And to get maybe drawn out to the largest aperture possible, you've heard it said probably God is love. I think there's truth there, because love is just that powerful. It's really the bottom line thing. It's as we care about each other, things get better, and as we get more jaded and indifferent towards others, things get worse. And that's observable across time and place. So if you want to be more part of the solution than the problem, I'd say start by nurturing your interest in other people, and not just the niceties of the day, the meal we just ate. Some people on the conversation stuff they're kind of there, and maybe that's a number 7. Make sure we're talking about things that actually are important to people. Now, if they're a foodie and they want to tell you about this particular meal they had, okay, that's fine, or clothes they bought or something like that. But generally speaking, if you want to have meaningful things that inspire and connect, it's going to be more about their relationships, their aspirations, the things that they would like to change in their life if they could, the things that they're most happy and proud about. It's the things that tie into the more deeply felt emotional areas, is where the gold really lies. So that's it. Great cruise, great bands. I'm going to do it again in March with Cruise to the Edge. This time, though, I'm not going to be by myself, so it'll be a little different story. I'm going to be bringing my son. I'm going with my brother and his son, and then one of my nephews. So we're going to have a crew, and it'll be great. It'll be a wonderful thing, but it'll be a different thing, because my goal there will not necessarily be to uplift everyone around me per se and have a great time myself. It'll mainly be to have a wonderful time with my son. Very unusual type of experience for us to have that, and then of course my loved ones as well that will be with us, and just to have be present with them and help them have the best time they possibly can have. That'll be the focus, and that'll be absolutely wonderful. So I probably won't end up with as many new friends at the end of that one as I did on this last one, but that's okay. Just be present with whatever is in front of you is the key. You don't have to have a goal or have a measuring outcome necessarily. Matter of fact, processes are sort of where, if you look at any high achieving, let's say, team, or whether it be in sports or in business, generally speaking, those leaders are focused on process. They're focused on what we're doing right now, today, and then our plan for tomorrow. and our plan for the week, and our plan for the month, and our plan for the quarter, and then finally for perhaps longer time frames than that. But it really comes down to those daily behaviors is where our power lies. And if you decide to make conversation a factor for you today, you can do so by nurturing your curiosity in other people about things that actually matter to them. Work on active listening and good questions. We talk about that a lot, but it really does start with the mindset that you value them because they know something you don't, and you want to add whatever that might be to your repertoire so that your narrative, your worldview, your ability to see the world and others is just that much more robust, complete, and strong and powerful. And that's how we build the eye of power. That's how we build our personal agency so that we can manifest the life that we want. So that'll do it for this week's Eye of Power episode. Thank you for listening. I hope this is valuable to you. And if it is, please share the episode and spread the word. Thanks so much. This has been the Eye of Power podcast with Tom Dardick. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd also like to thank my brother, Scott Dardick, for the music and his music production. If you'd like to reach me, simply email Tom at dardickcommunications.com.